Do you ever feel like you're just going through the motions in life? Like you're living on autopilot, following the same routine day after day without really knowing why? You wake up, you work, you eat, you sleep, and then you do it all again. And in the back of your mind, there's a nagging feeling that there has to be more to life than this. But you just can't seem to figure out what. You feel like there's a huge gaping hole inside of you that nothing seems to be able to fill. Well, if you've ever felt like this, you might be able to relate to the strange and haunting tale of a girl named Echo. She's a young woman who's just trying to figure out her place in the world. But she is struggling to do so because she doesn't know who she is or where she came from. All she knows is that she's an echo, a disembodied voice that's been searching for its source for as long as she can remember. In today's episode of Lost in Sound, we explore the dark and twisted story of a girl who's lost in sound and desperately trying to find her way back to the light. So sit back, relax, and get ready for an episode that's sure to leave you thinking. Echo was a young girl who lived in a world that was full of noise. There was the constant hum of machinery, the roar of crowds, and the blare of car horns. But Echo wasn't bothered by all this noise. In fact, she thrived in it. She was an echo, a being made of sound that could only exist in places where there was a lot of noise. When Echo was a child, she didn't know that she was any different from anyone else. She went to school, she made friends, and she had a family who loved her very much. But as she grew older, she began to notice that she wasn't like the other kids. She could unsee or be seen, and she could only communicate by repeating the last thing someone else had said. At first, she thought this was just a quirky personality trait. But, as time went on, she realized that it was something much more. She was literally just an echo, a disembodied voice with no body and no face. At first, Echo was devastated to realize that she wasn't like everyone else. She felt alone and misunderstood, and she spent most of her time hiding away from the world. But, as she grew older, she began to accept her fate. She learned to use her powers to communicate with others, and she eventually became a respected member of society. However, despite Echo's best efforts to make the best of her situation, she never really felt like she belonged. She was always on the outside looking in, and she yearned for the day when she could finally break free from her curse and live a more normal life. But deep down, Echo knew that this would never happen. She was doomed to wander the earth forever, a lonely ghost in a world that didn't understand her. One day, while Echo was walking through the park, she saw a group of children playing. They were laughing and screaming and having the time of their lives. And for a moment, Echo felt a pang of jealousy. She wanted to be like them, to be able to experience the world without the burden of her curse weighing her down. But, as she watched the children play, she realized that even they would eventually grow up and forget about the simple joys in life. She was cursed to be immortal, which meant she would never have to grow old or lose those close to her. Sure, she would have to wander the earth alone forever, but at least she wouldn't have to suffer the pain of watching those she cared about grow old and pass away. You see, Echo was starting to come to terms with her existence, but that didn't mean she wasn't still desperate to find the source of her powers. She was hoping that if she could find out why she was turned into an echo in the first place, she could also find a way to reverse the curse and become human again. After all, she was once a human being and had memories of what it was like to have a body and a face. But, as time went on, those memories began to fade and she started to feel like she was losing her humanity. She feared that one day she would completely forget what it meant to be alive. So she decided to go on a quest to find the source of her powers and hopefully find a way to undo the curse. But as Echo set out on her journey, She soon realized that it would not be easy. She had no idea where to start, and she was afraid that she would never be able to find the answers she was looking for. But despite the odds stacked against her, Echo was determined to succeed. She refused to give up hope, even when things seemed bleakest, and she pressed on, driven by the desire to reclaim her humanity and finally find peace. Throughout her travels, Echo met all sorts of interesting people. Some were friendly and helpful, while others were indifferent to her plight. But no matter what, Echo pressed on, never losing sight of her goal. She searched ancient texts, consulted with wise sages, and even risked her own safety to uncover long-lost secrets. And along the way, she learned more about herself and the world around her than she ever could have imagined. But despite all her hard work and determination, Echo was still no closer to finding the source of her powers. And the more time that passed, the more she started to lose hope. She began to believe that she was destined to wander the earth forever, trapped in her own personal hell. Just when Echo was about to give up all hope, she stumbled upon an ancient artifact that gave her the power to see the past. With this newfound ability, Echo was able to witness the events that led to her being turned into an echo. And she discovered that it was done by a powerful sorcerer, who was jealous of her abilities. With this knowledge in hand, Echo was able to defeat the sorcerer and finally break free from her curse. She was overjoyed to be human again and vowed to use her powers for good. From that day forward, Echo became known as a hero who used her powers to help others and make the world a better place. She lived a long and happy life and was revered by all who knew her. But, as time went on, the memory of Echo began to fade, and she was eventually forgotten. All that remains of Echo today are the faint whispers of her legend, echoing through the ages. It's a sad end for such a powerful and influential figure, but it's a reminder that even the greatest heroes can be forgotten if we do remember them. If you enjoyed this episode, then be sure to stay tuned for more adventures with Echo in the future. We're just getting started, and there's so much more to come. Don't miss out on any of the action. Subscribe now and join us every week for a new episode. You won't regret it. Thank you for joining us on this harrowing journey through the dark and twisted tale of Echo, the girl who's lost in sound. If you found this story intriguing, please don't hesitate to let us know in the comments below. Your feedback is invaluable to us and helps us continue producing quality content. Additionally, if you'd like to support us and our work, please consider becoming a patron. The link is provided below. We've got some exciting projects in the works that we can't wait to share with you, so stay tuned for updates. Thanks for listening.